With Watches and Wonders now over, there's a lot of chatter in the watch collecting world about everything that was revealed. One of the most shocking reveals for a lot of people was Rolex revealing another GMT master with the iconic Pepsi bezel. Now you may be wondering, why are people surprised at a watch that's been around for ages? Answering that question requires a little context. It's been a hot topic for a while, so if you're a fan of Rolex, this is important information. This video is all about what's been going on with this watch, why the hype around it will continue, and why everyone is talking about the Pepsi GMT Master. The iconic red and blue bezel has a rich history going all the way back to the GMT Master's debut in 1952 with the reference 6542. When it was first released, the bezel was made with Bakelite, which is really tough and durable plastic material. 4 years later, the Bakelite was replaced with aluminium with a reference 1675. Multiple subsequent versions of the watch were made up until 1989, when Rolex first introduced the GMT Master 2. People were quite upset knowing the Pepsi bezel was discontinued. Even after decades, it seemed people were investing a lot of money buying the Pepsi bezel GMTs, revering it as one of Rolex's best designs. So when the watch made a return in 2014, the watch world went crazy. Despite the red and blue bezel being recreated by other watch companies, it seemed everyone decided the iconic design belonged to Rolex. There was a problem though. Some people started noticing inconsistencies with the bezel. More specifically, everyone could see that the bright, almost pastel colors of the bezel were much darker in watches that were produced later. So people started putting two and two together and came to the conclusion that the Pepsi dial was really difficult for Rolex to produce. After all, it requires a special process where the red bezel is dipped and coated with cobalt in a complicated process to achieve the bicolor effect. That's why, when the watch is shone with a UV light, the blue portion of the bezel turns into the same red hue. Some were even saying that only 1 in 60 of these watches makes it to retail. Maybe there were problems in manufacturing, or maybe Rolex was keeping really high standards and rejecting anything below the best. Either way, it was evident that the Pepsi bezel had a reason beyond aesthetics for being darker. As time went on, there was another, even darker version, and the different iterations were called Mark 1, 2, and 3. Since the Pepsi GMT had become so expensive since its return in 2014, people were concerned about the watch's future. The change in price was because the timepiece was only being offered in white gold. Making a watch that would otherwise cost around $10,000, the standard for a sports watch, cost $40,000 was another decision that caused people to speculate Rolex wasn't making a lot of money on these watches because of the production issues. Finally, there was the reveal that Rolex had applied for a patent for a black and red bezel, something everyone is calling the Coke bezel. Because of the problems with the Pepsi variant, many were thinking that 2024 was the year the brand would decide to discontinue it and offer black and red as the new option in the GMT Master lineup. Especially given the fact that Rolex had been trying to master the manufacturing process for the Coke bezel. Many people were hyped that we'd finally get to see it in the flesh. Many were dreading it and feeling disheartened at the loss of a fan-favorite watch that has been a standard in the Rolex lineup for so many years. Of course, it didn't help that 2024 was going to be the 10th anniversary of the Pepsi GMT's return. Because of this, many were refusing to even think that Rolex would reveal anything but the iconic red and blue bezel this year too. Those who predicted that the Pepsi GMT was here to stay were arguing about what changes Rolex would bring to it this year. The biggest potential change being discussed was the bracelet. The dial has gone through multiple iterations over the years. 2018 saw the Pepsi GMT being offered in both a blue and meteorite dial. Yet the most iconic pairing with the red and blue bezel was the black dial. So naturally, people were unsure what this year would bring. Much to the appeal of many, the 2024 reveal has bestowed the black dial Pepsi GMT, and people are satisfied. Despite Rolex somehow managing to release the Pepsi GMT in 2024, many people are concerned with the apparent scarcity of the watch. Not every shop has one, and it's looking like there aren't many on the market overall. This raises a question of whether it's even a production issue. Since Watches and Wonders have ended, there are now rumors that it isn't a problem with getting these watches to stores, but rather what happens 4 or 5 years down the line. Many authorized dealers and shops have reported that about half of all Pepsi GMTs have broken bezels when they've been taken for repairs. Obviously, this isn't a good look for Rolex. People buy from Rolex with the assumption that it will last decades. A Rolex is seen as an investment, so a broken Pepsi GMT will surely cause heartbreak for anyone unfortunate enough to meet this fate. Though nobody has the full story on what's going on behind the scenes, it's clear that the Pepsi GMT is an issue for Rolex. Even if it's not about production issues, problems coming up after the product reaches customers are going to cost Rolex a lot of money. In the long run, continuing to make Pepsi GMTs is not the most sustainable option for the company. The fact that it has stayed so long is probably only because of the ridiculously high demand for these among collectors. It's a watch that sells well each year that it's released, so Rolex has banked on its popularity and continued to pump them out. This can't and likely won't go on forever. At some point, Rolex is going to take a serious look at what is going so wrong with this timepiece and make some changes that address the issues or end production of these altogether. It can make a comeback in the future, maybe when Rolex has designed a manufacturing process that goes with their equipment and expertise, eventually making a Pepsi GMT that will satisfy everyone. The hype and speculation around the Pepsi GMT is something that goes to show the sheer dedication some watch enthusiasts have towards this hobby. Despite Rolex staying quiet about what goes on in the manufacturing plants, people have been able to piece together clues and do enough detective work to figure out what Rolex is hiding from everyone. The Pepsi GMT has been around for so long that collectors have grown attached to the feeling of obsessing over each subsequent model. Being so close to everyone's heart, it makes sense that the watch collecting community would band together to become detectives and uncover why the Pepsi GMT is so inconsistent. Maybe this shows that Rolex may need to be more transparent in the future if they want the rumors to stop. On the other hand, all this speculation is probably good marketing for the company, so making another Pepsi GMT in 2024 was inevitable with all the free PR it's been getting from the online community. Rolex is managing to keep the Pepsi GMT relevant despite glaring issues. Some might even say that the small changes in color are a tactically thought-out decision for Rolex. Creating chatter around a product is good for marketing after all. Now people are left wondering though, what's in store for the future? How long will it be before we get to see the newly patented Coke bezel? Is it going to replace the Pepsi one, or is it going to be revealed as an option alongside it? Will Rolex address the issues some customers are facing with breakages? For the answer to any of these questions, we'll simply have to wait and see. The big dogs at Rolex are probably sitting around a desk strategizing the next GMT master release right now, thinking of how they can capitalize on the undying hype for this watch. No matter what, we're excited to see what happens, and we're pretty sure you are too.